Good evening and welcome. I'm Sue Smith, President of the Ann Arbor League of Women Voters, and we're thrilled that we have such a great turnout this evening to hear about this very important issue. First of all, I want to thank the library for hosting us this evening. We have a great partnership with the Ann Arbor District Library and it makes it possible for us to bring you lots of educational events. As you probably know, the League is a nonpartisan organization. We do not support or oppose parties or candidates. We do try to educate the public. Our mission is empowering voters and defending democracy. And certainly a big part of empowering voters is providing education on candidates and on issues. And I hope you've had a chance to pick up a copy of the print voter guide, which has been distributed around the whole state and certainly in Ann Arbor and the libraries and so forth. And if you want to look at the online voter guide, vote411.org, there was information on the table when you came in on how to access that. That has all of the candidates and ballot issues that you're going to see on your ballot. And in addition to that, it has information on the candidates and their answers to questions asked by the League of Women Voters. And that includes everybody who's going to be on your ballot, from the governor to all the local races as well. So I recommend you take advantage of that opportunity. Vote411.org. We have a full agenda this evening, and I hope that everyone was able to pick up a copy of the program so that you know how things are going to go and what to expect. We're going to start with the panel discussion, and we have two representatives from the pro side and two representatives from the con side. And of course, we're talking about Proposal A, which will be on your ballot. On November 6th. So for the pro side, we have Alan Haber from the Ann Arbor Committee for Community Center and Will Hathaway for the Ann Arbor Central Park Ballot Committee, right here on my left. And then at the next table, Linh Song from Protect Our Future and Jessica Letaw from YIMBY. So these people will be making presentations. Each side will have 15 minutes. Then the other side will have 15 minutes. And then the first side that spoke will have 5 to respond, and the second side will have 5 to respond. So 15, 15, 5, and 5. We have timers sitting right here, our league timers, that like we always have at our forums. And just a note to our presenters, at the 1-minute warning, the sign will be held up, 30 seconds, 15, and stop. And the same thing will be true when we go through the 5-minute responses. Following the panel discussion, we will then move to questions from the audience. And we have 2 stand-up mics, 2 floor mics. One right here in this corner. I think it says pro on it, doesn't it? Yes. And the other one says con. And so if you have a question, when we get to that part of the meeting, please get in line for whichever side you want to ask a question of or speak to. And the people from the audience will be timed as well, because we want to have as many people have an opportunity to ask questions as possible. So there's a 2-minute limit on the question. And again, we have the timers who will let you know when your time is getting near and when you must stop. And then I ask that each person speak only once until everybody's had an opportunity to speak who wants to. And I will alternate between the pro and con mics. We're doing everything we can to make this as fair a process as possible, and make it possible for everybody to get as much information this evening as possible. So we drew straws a little bit earlier this evening, and the con side drew number 1. So we'll start with the con side.
Great. Thank you, Sue. In addition to thanking the library for hosting, I'd like to thank the League of Women Voters for hosting this conversation. It's really wonderful to see so many people from the community here and to be able to talk about something that's complex and that has been a part of our community for a long time together in one room and to be able to ask one another questions. So we'll just jump right into the introduction. So yes, we are the group who is excited for folks to vote no on Proposal A. Lynn, if you would just say a little bit about yourself.
I'm Linh Song. I'm a longtime resident, trustee for the Ann Arbor District Library, but not speaking on behalf of the Board of Trustees.
And Lynn, as you can see in the picture on the left, is from suburban Detroit. She's from Dearborn. I'm from suburban Atlanta, from Stone Mountain, Georgia, and moved up here about 10 years ago for school, and I knew 10 minutes after I got here that I was home. So I determined to find a job after school. I did, and I now, among many other things, moderate a conversation online called Ann Arbor YIMBY, or Yes in My Backyard. It's a conversation about growth and development in our community, and it encourages civil discourse and leaves space for disagreement while still looking for ways to find connection with one another. So we're live streaming this event tonight, and that video will be available immediately after. You do not have to be a member of the group. You don't even have to be a member of Facebook to be able to see this information. All the information is public. Also, all of the resources that I'll be referencing tonight will be posted as a link in YIMBY tomorrow. So I'm going to go to a little bit of a history and a civics lesson. Why are we here and what are we doing? And then Lynn's going to take us home on what it means for us as a community. So what are we voting on? This is the ballot proposal. If you've gotten your absentee ballot, you've seen it already. If you haven't, this is what's coming. But here's what we're being asked to decide. We're being asked to decide if we should hold a particular piece of public land, in this case, the block, the city block that we're sitting on right now, in perpetuity, to be designated as an urban park and civic center commons. So those are the three things that we're being asked to decide. Should it be public land? Should it be perpetuity? And should that definition be urban park and civic center commons? And at the end, we'll get a little bit more into what this means. But at its heart, this is what we're voting on. What we're not voting on is the proposal. We're not voting on how tall it is. We're not voting on whether the plaza has a splash pad. We're not voting on whether we think it's ugly or gorgeous or exactly what Ann Arbor needs. That's not the decision. We're voting on the ballot proposal of should the public land stay public in perpetuity. So why are we voting on this? Great question. So let's talk a little bit about this block as it started. So this was originally settled by the Potawatomi Indians, or the Native Americans. And then when the white settlers came and started settling Ann Arbor and moving further out into what's now very central Ann Arbor, but at the time was kind of the far reaches of the city, Fifth Avenue was single-family homes or larger homes used as boarding houses. So this is 19th century Fifth Avenue. 20th century Fifth Avenue, it was probably slightly less fuzzy at the time, but you can see on the left, the vertical line is Fifth Avenue, and the line through the center is what would eventually become Library Lane. So this is the 1940s, and in 1947, by 1947, this lot had been developed as a parking lot. So 1947 to 2018, we've had a parking lot on the site for 71 years. Okay, great. So still, why are we voting on this? Because we need to figure out what's going to take this site into the 21st century. You can see my wish list, which is a hoverboard landing spot. That's probably not what we're going to get, but what we have right now is not just a surface parking lot, but also an underground parking lot. So let's talk a little bit more about Fifth Avenue in the 21st century. So this is going to get a little bit dense. As I mentioned, all of these resources are going to be posted. I'm happy to make them available to you in any way. What I'm walking you through is how I did my homework for understanding exactly what decision we're making and why it matters on this site. So 21st century, we're coming into the 2000s. Ann Arbor is growing, Ann Arbor is thriving. We're having the problems of where do we put all of our new people. So the city started looking at what do we do about this. In 2003, voters overwhelmingly passed the Greenbelt Knowledge, which is saying we'd like to protect our parks, we'd like to protect our outlying farmland. We do not want to develop. We want to maintain that strong connection to nature that Ann Arbor has always had. So it starts with the Greenbelt Knowledge. In 2006, City Council directs a task force to look more specifically at downtown through the A2D2 or the Ann Arbor Discovering Downtown process. And part of what that came up with is a directive to build an underground parking lot that would support a development on the library lot. And that was a directive from the City Council to the DDA. In 2012, the parking lot was finished, and in 2013, the DDA completed a study called the Connecting Williams Study, which was an analysis of downtown public land on kind of the southwest part of the city. So the library lot was part of it, the library, the Y lot, the 4th and William parking lot, Polio, Klein lot, a number of publicly owned lands, because it makes more sense with any development to look at it in context. So how not to ask one site to solve all problems, but to say, how can we ask this region, how can we ask this set of assets to meet our needs as a community? So from the Connecting Williams study, there were some concerns that open space and public gathering places were not being adequately addressed. So the Parks Advisory Committee directed a subcommittee to take a look at specifically open space in the downtown. At the end of 2013, they issued their own report and resolutions, which I'll come back to in a moment, that's specific to open space in the downtown. In 2014, partly as a result of the Connecting Williams study and the Parks Committee, City Council authored a resolution requiring that whatever development happened on this site, it had to have at least 12,000 square feet of open space treated as a public plaza. And I think I saw Councilmember Jack Eaton here. He was the one actually who authored that resolution. So that made sure that no matter how the site was moving forward, that there was going to be a significant amount of the property. It's a 16,000 square foot site. 12,000 square feet of it is legally obligated to be treated as public land. So in 2016, with all of that kind of groundwork laid, City Council issued a request for proposals to developers. In 2017, City Council identified the winning proposal, the leading proposal, and voted to sell the lot. So too long, don't read. Why are we here? We are here because for the last decade and a half, Ann Arbor residents and city staff and city elected officials have consistently said, we know Ann Arbor is growing. We care very deeply about open space. And part of the analysis of the library lot is that any sale of that particular piece of public land is required to donate 50% of the proceeds to the Affordable Housing Fund. So we're using the public process to express our values as a community. Okay, so that's how we got to the library lot, but how did we get to the ballot proposal? So in any given public process, it's complicated. If you guys have, and most of you guys I'm imagining have been to at least one public meeting, and if not, you're at one now. And you understand that because we are so infinitely diverse in our humanity, those meetings can be complicated and messy, and it's not always clear what the outcomes are or how we should feel about them or what we should do about them. And in this particular case, with that long set of actions leading up to the set of decisions on the library lot, there were a group of people who were unhappy with the outcome. So we are here because there's a group of people who decided that they were not content with how the outcomes of the public process was managed and decided that they wanted to organize a petition drive to bring this issue directly to the voters. So they are asking the voters directly what we think about what we should do on this lot. Okay, so what? I'm going to talk a little bit about the development, but more importantly, I want to talk about the proposal. So we'll just go through this quickly. If we do have private development on this lot, what we'll get are hundreds of jobs. some permanent, more construction. We'll get housing, both for people who can afford to live downtown and people for whom that's difficult through a workforce subsidy. We'd also get a 50% of the sale proceeds of the project will be a direct donation to the Affordable Housing Fund, which is otherwise an unfunded bank account. We get public space, as I mentioned. We get that 12,000 square foot plaza. We get a significant amount of taxes, millions of dollars every year that gets thrown out into parks, that gets thrown out into roads, that gets thrown out into schools, that gets thrown out into basic services like trash and snow removal. And most importantly, we get kind of the end of this public process, which is really just the beginning of the next phase of the public process, which is how do we engage the building that we want to see? How do we engage the park that we want to see, the plaza in front of the building? Okay, but the real so what is, what are the problems with the ballot proposal? And it goes back to exactly what we're being asked to vote on. We are asking our city staff and elected officials and our community to say forever, we're not going to do anything with this land but hold it into public trust. And the only thing that we can do with it is develop it as an urban park and a civic center commons. Now, an urban park is fairly well understood. A civic center commons is not. And unfortunately, this would be a really easy mechanism as future developments are proposed for this site to be able to say, well, this doesn't match my definition of a civic center commons, so I don't want to see us move forward with it. And so we may go for another 81 years and not see anything happen on the site because it's so much easier to get to a no in development than it is for us to get to a yes. But I think the biggest problem with the proposal is that in the decade and a half that we've been talking about this process and in this site, no major community partners and no major community donors have been identified as wanting to move forward with this as part of the process. Whereas in the decade and a half that I mentioned, there were a lot of alternatives suggested, and I'll get to that in a moment. So if I were to say, how should you vote on this? I would ask you to find the values that matter to you and vote on your values. So if you care about due process, City Council already voted to sell this land. The mayor supports a no vote on this proposal. If you care about fiscal responsibility, we're foregoing so much money in terms of taxes by foregoing private development. If you care about parks and open space, you care about the fact that the Parks Advisory Committee said, please don't give this to us without a plan and a fund. If you care about affordability, you care about the fact that we do not have another way to secure this $5 million for the most sensitive and insecure, housing insecure people in our community. And if you care about what the experts have to say, urban planners and architects have been weighing in again and again on why they are not in favor of Proposal A. The neighbors to this site, the owners of Chela's, are excited for a new development on this site. The Ann Arbor District Library Board has stated a proposal resolving no support for Proposal A. And most importantly, Ann Arbor itself has said that they're not interested. So in that 2013 Parks Advisory Committee survey, what Ann Arbor said overwhelmingly is A, so we're most of the pie here. Most of the pie said, yes, we want public space, we want more open space in downtown Ann Arbor. Most of the people said, no, we do not want public funds to pay for it. And most of the people said, yes, we do want a public-private partnership that would help us, allow us to accomplish all of the goals that we want to for our downtown without it having to come out of the pocket of every one of us taxpayers. And I'm curious what Lynn has to say about voting no.
Where did the data for the pie come from?
The data from the pie came from the 2013 Parks Advisory Commission report. It's from October 2013, and it was a subcommittee that was specific to looking at open spaces in downtown Ann Arbor. Something else that's interesting from that report is that respondents to the survey were asked to rate open spaces in downtown Ann Arbor for what they'd like to see. The library lot was ranked significantly and dead last in what they wanted to see developed as an open park.
And here we are, 5 years later, after the survey, and still wrestling with the same question, only on a ballot. So I also wanted to thank everyone for coming out tonight. You have busy lives. You could be walking downtown enjoying the beautiful weather before it's less beautiful. My children are reminding me to please pick up their comic books from Vaulted Midnight. So I encourage you, if you're going to explore downtown, to also pick up your comic books. So I love Ann Arbor. I enjoy Ann Arbor. I enjoy downtown Ann Arbor. I've seen downtown Ann Arbor change.
Go ahead.
Okay. So I'm glad you're here. We'll have a Q&A afterwards, but I would like to ask you, oh, are we at stop?
You can have the rebuttal.
Oh, okay.
I took Lynn's time, sorry.
Oh,
Okay,
all right.
all right. That's
fine.
the first
We're-
15 minutes, and you'll have another 5 minutes later to finish whatever you wanted to say. And we'll turn now to the pro side.
I need a device from the
do
other
need a
table.
device. Do you know how to scroll through the, do we just advance it through?
It should just be, yeah.
Okay.
Yep, here we go. Does that work?
Yeah.
Okay. Good evening. My name is Will Hathaway. I was born in Ann Arbor. I attended public schools here. I'm a graduate of Pioneer High School. I have one daughter who's already graduated from Skyline. I don't hold that against her as a former Pi High. And another who's a senior there. On behalf of the Ann Arbor Central Park Ballot Committee, I want to thank the Ann Arbor Area League of Women Voters and the Ann Arbor District Library for hosting this panel discussion. Our campaign asks Ann Arbor voters to vote yes on Proposal A, a city charter amendment on the November ballot. Proposal A will keep the public land known as the library lot from being sold to a private developer. The land would remain publicly owned and retained for the purpose of creating an urban park and civic center. Tonight we'll explain the need for this ballot proposal and our vision for what the community will achieve when voters approve it. Ann Arbor's downtown lacks public open space. It has not been a priority since Liberty Plaza first opened in 1977, over 40 years ago. You can see Liberty Plaza as the green rectangle in the middle of this map, which comes from the 2009 downtown plan. The other downtown parks are Hardscape, Sculpture Plaza, which is a tiny little space, and the Farmers Market. Yes, that's considered a park. The DDA also counts the sidewalks along Main Street as being park. In 2010, the downtown resident population was about 3,000 people. At that point, the amount of public open space was already inadequate. In the 8 years since then, the downtown population has more than doubled, and it continues to grow. Ann Arbor has 1,586 more downtown apartments and condos than it did in 2010, with 444 apartments and 25 condo units added in 2018 alone. This development trend shows no sign of slowing down. There is more construction already in the pipeline, and ideas for major projects on privately owned land are in active planning. Oops. Oh, sorry, I'm getting too button crazy here. Even though the downtown population has increased, the amount of public open space has remained static, so this map hasn't changed. One might argue that it has even shrunk as the number of sidewalk permits issued to businesses has increased. Many years ago, before most of us can remember, Ann Arbor had a town square. It was the lawn of the county courthouse. That public space was lost when the courthouse was torn down in the mid-1950s. Some have said that the University of Michigan's Diag is Ann Arbor's town square. While we certainly benefit from the university's willingness to allow use of this space, it is a substitute town square. The Diag will always be the U of M space. Ann Arbor has its own distinct identity and needs its own focal space at its center. Luckily, the city of Ann Arbor owns a parcel of land at the very center of the downtown. When the Parks Advisory Commission evaluated all the potential sites for a downtown park, they concluded that the library lot on the library block was the best candidate. Liberty Plaza is Ann Arbor's only true downtown park. Called a vest pocket park by one of its designers, Liberty Plaza is a modest 11,900 square foot open space connected by footpath to the library lot. When it opened in 1977, it was met with a positive response. However, when the retail uses of the adjacent building went away in the 1980s, the dynamic of the park was altered. The situation at Liberty Plaza can be improved. One way is through activation in relationship to the rest of the block. As Alan Felt put it, we must not miss this opportunity to link development of the library lot to Liberty Plaza, thereby providing a pedestrian link across the entire block and generating foot traffic through both parks. Pedestrian linkages through the block will help both parks become active destinations from several directions. With more people passing by on a regular basis, some behaviors now disturbing public use of Liberty Plaza are likely to decline and less likely to appear in the newly created park on Fifth Avenue. In 1988, City Council created a subcommittee to plan redevelopment of the library block. The resulting 1991 report, referred to as the Lukenbach study, envisioned a town square, green space, and pedestrian paths. The Calthorpe Downtown Development Report made this recommendation for the library lot. Pursue and design a town square or central civic area that incorporates an outdoor meeting space, an art center, underground parking, an indoor facility, and mixed-use buildings. Despite all these rounds of consensus building, there remained opposing views about the future of the library lot. On the one hand, there were those at City Hall and the DDA who wanted maximum development by a private owner with financial return. On the other hand, there were those who still held on to the idea of a central community space of some kind and opposed the privatization of public land. Another outcome was that after the Calthorpe process, views toward public input hardened. Never again would the city allow such free rein to the public's imagination. One Calthorpe recommendation that the pro-privatization faction embraced was creating underground parking. As part of the development of the library lane parking structure, other elements to support future development were included. These included library lane, improved water mains to the east and west, an extra-wide service alley, fire suppression and reinforcement with added concrete and steel for some of the footings beneath the underground structure. Estimated costs for these elements to support future development became a point of contention later. These elements could support a variety of options atop the parking structure, but the city leaned heavily toward a particular outcome. An RFP process that prioritized economic development produced a finalist, the valiant proposal for a massive hotel conference center. At the last minute, the city council realized that the deal was badly structured and put the city at risk. The DDA was tasked with developing consensus for development of the library lot and other city-owned parcels in the downtown. This process came to be known as Connecting William Street. After a year of meetings and a public opinion survey, the DDA produced a report. Advocates for a park on the library lot had participated in the public input sessions and were highly critical of both the process and the handling of data by the DDA. City Council did not approve or accept the DDA's Connecting William Street report. The 2010 RFP process rejected two separate proposals for a park on the library lot. They were ruled out because they did not meet the RFP's top criterion, economic development. Parks advocates felt that this was unfair. They knew that, in addition to other benefits, a well-designed downtown park could be an engine for economic development. The parks advocates got together and formed a group, the Library Green Conservancy. They hoped to follow in the footsteps of the Ann Arbor skate park advocates who had persuaded City Hall to dedicate publicly owned land for the site of a future skate park. The funds for creating it were then raised in partnership with the Ann Arbor Area Community Foundation. Parks advocates found many examples of successful downtown parks that had brought economic development to surrounding urban areas. There was a growing movement around the concept of placemaking. Placemaking is the creation of a dynamic, attractive public space to revitalize and bring new investment to downtown neighborhood. Campus Martius in Detroit is one nearby example of placemaking. Ice skating is one way that Campus Martius attracts people year-round. Economic benefits from placemaking occur through existing buildings, new construction, more customers, and increased tax revenue. Existing buildings, why is this not changing? Here we go. Oh. I guess it's slower on this screen. Existing buildings near the library lot would be reborn with new expanded uses, reoriented, or even replaced, if appropriate. If we can imagine a new building, why not reimagine these? The Ann Arbor District Library draws about 600,000 people downtown each year. The library visitors would use the park. Libraries elsewhere successfully partner with adjacent parks. A strong pedestrian link from Liberty Plaza to a park and civic center on the library lot would enhance and connect both public spaces. It would be Ann Arbor's own downtown diag. Oops. Here we go. Sorry. Thank you. Think creatively about the center of Ann Arbor. What kind of town square do we want? Proposal A has been characterized in various ways. Let's be clear. Proposal A keeps the public land for public purposes, specifically to create an urban public park and civic center. Both these concepts allow for flexibility. For example, if we determine that the expense to plant more grass and trees is prohibitive, we can adjust the design of the park. The civic center could be reconfigured to serve multiple purposes. The city and library could decide to partner on a facility. First Martin Corporation might build its new building on the adjacent property in collaboration with the public open space. All these outcomes could be accommodated. The concerns about how to pay for the park and civic center have reached a level of scare tactics. Let's be realistic. Proposal A doesn't mandate any particular project or cost. The city would still have to figure out what kind of park and civic center it wanted through a public process that engaged the neighboring stakeholders, such as the library. One benefit of being downtown is that the project would be eligible for funding from the Downtown Development Authority because it would be a public improvement within that jurisdiction. The easements necessary to create pedestrian pathways could be paid for using parks acquisition funds. Most downtown parks we've looked at have significant support from private donors, both individuals and businesses. We'd expect to work through the planning and design issues and raise funds starting in 2019 with the goal of dedicating a new park and civic center in 2024. Why that date? 2024 is Ann Arbor's bicentennial. What better way to celebrate Ann Arbor's 200th birthday than to have a new arbor for the 21st century? Please vote to keep public land for Ann Arbor's 21st century town square. And
Okay, now we're ready to go back
wait,
to...
does Alan have any time to?
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't realize you went through. Go ahead,
I still
Alan.
got a minute? 3 minutes, good. I'm Alan Haber. I came to Ann Arbor in 1936, so I do remember the old town square. I don't quite remember the streetcars, they were gone. I've been an advocate, if you may know, for participatory democracy since I started at the university in 1954. And I'd say I'm an activist. I believe, and I began this, I was part of the Wooden Spoon collective bookshop, and when we got closed because the prices got raised, and the city was determining what to do with the old Y building, I suggested that should be a community commons. Don't tear it down to make a parking lot. Make something beautiful out of it that people could use. Well, that didn't fly. But when the RFP came up 743 for the library lot, I said this same notion to use public space as something to gather the whole community as a commons, and recognizing that all over the world people are struggling for their commons, for the commonwealth, whether it's land or air or information or water. The privatizing mode of the current economy takes over what is public for everyone and tries to make a profit off it. Now, if you are in the monetized mentality, or colonized mentality that money is all that matters, that's all you will see. But there is another economy, a love economy, where people see something of value, of beauty, and they want to make something together to create community. So this is development, it is economic development, primarily it is community development. And the ideas that has been put forward, how to gather the caring in the Ann Arbor community to do something beautiful as a central destination for Ann Arbor for everyone, all the neighborhoods, all the people who live here, inclusive. 1 minute. I put forward this as a commons because the commons is really what people all over the world are struggling for, and in some way even in Ann Arbor in our various different ways. The commons has a culture. It is mutual benefit. Everybody can go. It is mutual responsibility. Everybody takes care of it. And it is mutual respect. People recognize one another. That is from the Magna Carta back in 1215. And that culture has been continued in the struggle up until now, and it is right here. And people don't believe, but I do, and most people, and some have that place in their heart, that we really have to see ourselves as growing community, as allowing all the talents in this community to come together to do something beautiful for everyone, and in particular for the next generation. Put memories and good ideas in this public place, and it will develop and it will change. It's not just a park, it's a commons, it's a community center, it's a place for a building.
Your timing was excellent, Al. All right, so now we're back to the con side for 5 minutes.
So I'm so glad Alan speaks to the need for a civic commons and a place to meet and a place to commune. This is a growing city. It's a changing city. And I would argue that we're actually sitting in our city commons, our civic commons. We have meeting spaces. You're surrounded by art from artists from throughout the community. We have classes for ESL learners. We serve the most vulnerable community members to, baby story time. We serve all populations, all ages, all means, all year round. So I'm glad this is something that we agree on. There is a need for that space. What I don't agree on is that there should be a duplicate of it. So if you're talking about the library lot becoming another building, another civic commons, I mean that the challenge is to the community is that if we're voting for that, that means we're funding it.
Unknown caller.
So we've already visited this question in 2012 when the library bond failed. The community did not want to fund expanding this building, updating this building. So despite our love for it, we're not very good about funding our love for community spaces and civic commons. If you vote to support Proposal A, what we'll be facing is another millage down the road, no. And there's the Parks Committee itself has said time and time again there is no additional funding for it. Yet there is actually a ballot for park funding, and that is to support existing parks, and that in its entirety would not build a new downtown park. Now, if we're going to keep talking about a park, I'm really glad that you brought up the skate park, because that is a model that's being implemented across the country, in New York and in Southeast Michigan. The reason why we're welcoming new skate parks in Redford and Ypsilanti is because skate park organizer Trevor Staples, longtime townie, public school teacher, and a couple of community members, kids, worked for 8 years. From start to finish, they built that skate park. They raised the $100K endowment that was required by the city, but more importantly, they brought people to the table and established commitments and partnerships. This is a process. It's a process where everyone comes to the table in good faith, and they dream together, and they build together, and it actually came into fruition. Ann Arbor can build dog parks. Ann Arbor can build skate parks. I don't know if Ann Arbor can build another civic commons next to a civic commons, or a park that went from being an ice rink to a park with a bridge, to a park with classrooms and with a bridge. The ideas keep changing. This is not Ann Arbor. We are to resist the idea of building in Ann Arbor. It means resisting being a welcoming community. When we say we're resisting a building, that means we're resisting people. And I reject that. I love this city. I love this town. It's changed. And I think we've changed for the better in a lot of ways. Some things are disappointing because we hold on to nostalgia. I would like Eastern accents to come back to town. I would love Liberty Street Video to be back here. But if you go upstairs, we've replicated the miracles of Liberty Street video upstairs with records. So my thought on Proposal A is that we need to look at what we're actually voting on. Jess has already talked about we're not voting on a building. We're not voting on the design of a building. We're voting on the future obligations of future generations. And that means that in perpetuity. And I've been around the community, I've been telling people perpetuity means forever. Do we know when we walk into the voting booth what the lot's use will be in perpetuity? I don't think so. We've struggled with this for over 70 years. And I don't know if another 20, another 40 will really bring us there. But we've had city leaders, we've had urban planners, people who do this day in and day out, who are respected in their fields, help guide us to this point. I would rather that we not Scott Pruitt this process. I've been using Scott Pruitt as a verb because people have been thoughtful, they've been participating. And this is just the beginning of what's to come. And it's a beautiful thing to be able to enjoy a plaza, bring children downtown, for the library to partner with an entity and not a parking lot. Did you have yours 15 seconds?
With my 15 seconds, I will say Will made the comment that in 2018, downtown 444 apartments and 25 condos were built. That's great. That's exciting. We've got 80,000 commuters into the city every day. So I just wanted to kind of point that out.
And also the big buildings are built for students.
I think we're done with the con side for right now. Okay, so the pro side has 5 minutes.
I want to say something about the library commons, because the library is a wonderful institution. And when we initially began this notion, we thought that this would be a cooperative development. Unfortunately, the library had its own sense of what it wanted and was not at all interested in cooperative development, and from the beginning refused to have the question of the commons or their next door property on the agenda. In my efforts to put it on the agenda, maybe I should have worked harder, were unsuccessful, whether for the library director or the president of the library. It just didn't happen. There should be a cooperation between the development of the library lot, the community commons, and the library itself. And if there's a yes vote, I'm sure the library board would find its way to be cooperative.
I'd like to deal with some of the claims that have been made by opponents about Proposal A. One is, and this is the sort of the top thing in their campaign materials, Proposal A will take valuable property off the tax rolls. And this is just false. The library lot is publicly owned land. It has never been on the tax rolls. Tax revenue is needed for the library lot, or we will have to cut budgets. False. The lost revenue from not building the 17-story core spaces project would have very little or no effect on resources for basic city services.
Can I get something in here?
Quick.
Yeah, I want to say also that all this business about the experts all say it can't be done. Some experts say that. Other experts say otherwise. Carl Lynn, an amazing architect, has a whole program on the development of the commons and community. Yeah, the whole issue of the commons all over the world, people are doing this. People's Park in Berkeley, an example of the people developing a community. The pattern language, I'm a friend of Murray Silverstein who helped do this. Experts in community development understand that a community together can do amazing things with whatever is the irregularities of the space. It's not the perfect space, but it's a good space that can do what we need. There are peace places all over the world. And for those who don't understand the commons, I have some leaflets here about what is the commons.
The library lot is on top of an underground parking structure. It's a bad place for a park. False. Difficult spaces lead to some of the best, most creative public parks. Post Office Square, the High Line in New York, Millennium Park on top of an underground parking structure in Chicago. But we're told we can't grow trees and grass on the library lot. False. They're already there. As advocates pushed the idea of a park on the library lot, opponents made counter-arguments, and one was that the top of the library lane structure could support a tall building but not trees and grass. And this argument became increasingly odd as the existing landscaping took root and thrived. The Park Advisory Commission is opposed to a park on the library lot. False. The PAC's 2013 report on downtown parks and open space recommended creating a park on the library lot with some qualifications. Of the publicly owned sites in the downtown, the PAC concluded that the library lot was the best location. This was affirmed by PAC's survey respondents, and of the 1,600 survey respondents, 76% favored more downtown parks and open space. I think we must be looking at that pie differently. We desperately need a 17-story tower. False. We have plenty of development. Ann Arbor's economic survival doesn't hinge on the projected revenue from any one development. The assessed taxable value of Ann Arbor properties is at an historic high. We spent $5 million on reinforced footings. We need to recoup that. False. The DDA doesn't know what the footings cost, and it doesn't matter. In November 2013, Susan Polley admitted that there was no way to know how much was spent on the footings or what the cost difference is between a reinforced and a regular footing. The $5.3 million figure is an estimate that includes other elements. It isn't a hard number. More importantly, it is a sunk cost, money already spent that can't be recovered. The idea of a town square civic center predates the idea of a luxury tower on the library lot, which is everyone's yard. In this situation, CORE's supporters are the NIMBYs.
It's our front yard. We want it.
Okay, as we go along through this evening, I'm going to ask you to refrain from applauding because that will take time. So if you want to speak either on the pro or con side, please go to the appropriate microphone and get in line, and I will alternate between the microphones. And remember, each person has a limit of 2 minutes, and you may speak only once until everybody who wants to speak has had an opportunity. Now, if there are anybody in the overflow room who wants to ask a question, of course, they're welcome to come into the main room and get in line. All right, I'm going to start with the pro side, 2 minutes. No, the pro. This is the right here is a pro.
You.
Will you state your name, please?
Sure. My name is Susan Sobolski, and I'm a longtime Ann Arbor resident. I have a question for the con side. I'm hoping that you can explain how the construction of a 17-story luxury high-rise became the method of choice for funding affordable housing in Ann Arbor. Why is a one-time payment preferred over sustainable funding through sources such as the DDA for downtown housing or a bond issue for citywide housing?
Susan, I think those are fantastic questions. I am a board member of the DDA, so I can speak to some of that. The DDA actually does have a standing affordable housing fund, and that does go to supporting especially the most sensitive downtown residents. Those grants are awarded nearly every year, and right now the Partnerships Committee is considering a resolution specific to the Y lot right now. With respect to the rest of your question, I think that now is an intensely urgent time for us to have a better wraparound plan with respect to our affordable housing. We have the data to tell us what we need. We have the Affirmatively Furthering Fair Housing Survey from the Housing Commission in 2017 that gets pretty specifically, it goes from the Washtenaw County side to really what Ann Arbor needs to be doing, what the urgent areas are and needs in our community. The next step for that is a comprehensive funding plan. We do need to do that. That's not what we're being asked to decide tonight. What we're being asked to decide tonight is, do we vote to keep this land public in perpetuity? And the answer to that either way does not answer our urgent affordable housing needs, and I appreciate you bringing those up.
Okay, now we'll take someone at the con mic, please.
Doug Kilwell, Professor of Architecture and Urban Planning here at the U. I've taught, written, and practiced urban design for the last half of my career. I've lived downtown, excuse me, for 20 years. About 12 years ago, on a retreat for the library board, I noticed on a map that this block we're sitting in was the biggest in the city. And I thought, why would we put a lane down there? And lo and behold, it happened, to my shocking surprise. Then I consulted on the underground parking garage, and we made sure that the
He has 2 minutes. All right, order please. He has 2 minutes to either ask a question or make a comment.
I'll make a comment and add 10 seconds back. So I consulted on the underground parking garage. We specifically undersized the columns at the front so there would be a 10,000 to 12,000 foot plaza. And if any tall building happened, it would be in the middle of the block where it doesn't loom over the streets. The core proposal has done exactly that. I think the worst decision in my 20 years here is moving Amtrak. This would be the second worst decision in my opinion. Why? Because parks on decks are mediocre parks, no big trees except over columns, no rolling terrain, and importantly, there are no buildings fronting it. Look at the great urban parks around the world. They have buildings fronting them, no front doors, and those onerous and conspicuous parking ramps. Yes, we do need a common Allen and build, and I respect your opinions, but we need one on terra firma, and we've talked about places that's possible.
Okay, thank you. Now we go to the, please, you're taking time away from people to ask questions or make a comment. All right, sir.
Sure. Thanks for having those meetings tonight. My name is Vince Crusoe, board member of the Sierra Club and the Allen's Creek Watershed Group. And I would just like to say that I like Doug Cowboy. I think he's a very smart guy, but I think if you look at some of the very successful cities in America, especially say, let's look at New York. They have the High Line. They just built that High Line recently. They came to Ann Arbor and actually talked about it. It's up on an old track. It's lots of concrete. Somehow they were able to put a lot of plantings there. When they came and presented to us in Ann Arbor, they said, well, we're not as great as the Sphinx in Egypt, but we actually have a lot more people visiting us in the Sphinx. It actually generated $2 billion in investments within a few short years. It's hugely popular. And I think Ann Arbor needs a green space in our downtown. We need a green space where people can sit and meet their friends, not have to spend money, be able to meet, people who live downtown in a green space. U of M did their own study with other universities showing that people who walk in green space actually have a better response than people walking in an urban center, which is all concrete. And they do better than when they take antidepressants, and there's no side effects. It calms you. There's something in our psyche that we need green space, and I think this is a great example of why we want a green space in the downtown. We have all these people moving downtown. They need a place to take their grandkids, to take their kids. It's not so much fun to play in the streets as in the downtown, I'll tell you that. So I think we will benefit greatly. We'll have tremendous tax benefits from this if you look at New York and how they've benefited from their green space. The most expensive properties in downtown New York are along the great park they have downtown, Central Park. So,
all right, thank you. All right, the con. Mike, please.
Is there time to answer, or is it not a question?
Oh. Is this a question that we can get to answer?
I didn't hear a question in there, so this is really meant for the audience, so we're going to go to the con. Mike, please.
Hey, my name is Trevor Staples, longtime resident of Ann Arbor. I was born at Old St. Joe, went to Baugh, Slauson, Pioneer and Community. My dad went to Baugh, Slauson, and Ann Arbor High, and now my daughter has gone to Baugh, Slauson, and goes to community now. You might also know me from helping to develop the skate park in town. I do still serve on the board of directors of the Friends of the Ann Arbor Skate Park. I'm not here speaking on behalf of them, but I did want to clear up some things having to do with the two groups, the pro-A people and the skate park group. when we started the idea of the skate park, we had a vision and a project, and we were looking for a location. And it took us over a year to find the best location for the project that we had. We went through many parks in Ann Arbor that were possible. We narrowed it down to 3. Finally, it came down to 1. And then there was a unanimous vote by PAC and council for that. So that's one difference between us. I don't see, what I see is the opposite of that with the pro-A group, which sees a place waiting for a project. Another thing is that the place that we developed the skate park, there was an open field there. Here, there's a building slated to be built there. It's a little harder process than what we had. I will say that I'm happy that there's a community advocacy group that's active like we are, but that's about where where it ends. And one last thing, IPSI is doing the same thing now, where they have the funding and the concept and the vision. Right now, they're working to find a location.
Okay, thank you. Pro side.
Hi, I'm Rita Mitchell, and also a longtime resident. And I want to talk a little bit about funding and some of the concerns that have been directed toward the Proposal A group with respect to lack of funding. We actually have a number of projects in the city that don't have funding. We've already spent over $1 million on planning for moving a train station that is projected to cost a minimum of $86 million, depending on where it's built. There's no funding for the $86 million. We've continually added to the budget for the planning part for that train station. We've also have a tree line plan that's master planned, and that does not currently have funding. And so there are a number of projects that are supported by a number of people in the community that don't have funding. So I'd like to understand the funding issue that's been placed on this project that's being proposed for Proposal A.
All right, thank you.
For the concept, my question.
Your question is?
What is the concern, or why is this project different from 2 others that are major projects that don't have funding?
Okay, thank you.
I don't believe the other projects were mandated and required an amendment to our city charter. Is that right?
Mm-hmm. That's right.
Okay, now we go to the con mic.
So I think it's different processes for different projects.
Hello, my name is Meredith Kahn. I'm a resident of Ann Arbor, a University of Michigan alum from a big University of Michigan family. Both Lynn and Jess, you have quite a bit of expertise in this area, so I wanted to hear you both speak about the ways in which the University of Michigan Diag does actually function as a town square.
I will speak for myself and say that since 2016, that has been my antidepressant. All of the demonstrations and the parades and the marches that we've had. We need that scale of space when we have this level of unrest. So it is public land, and it is adjacent to and within the borders of the DDA. It can handle thousands and thousands and thousands of people. I'm trying to remember how many people were at the Immigrant Children Rally, but it was
I spoke at that one.
Yeah, it was a couple thousand. So
my experience is through protest, coming here to the university. So I grew up in Dearborn, Michigan, and then finished school in Canton, so suburbia. I will not raise my children in suburbia. I'm here intentionally. And coming to the University of Michigan was eye-opening. My first protest was to support affirmative action, and I still remember my mother calling me because she actually called me and said, we are sending you to the university. We just saw your big head on local TV marching the streets in the Diag. And they were very proud of me because they are Vietnam War refugees, and this is the hippie ethos, is to stand up for social justice. So I've participated in all sorts of protests. I spoke at the Keep Families Together rally this past summer. I bring my children, I bring my entire family, I brought my parents, and when they looked over the diag, one, they said, we didn't realize so many white people supported immigrants and refugees. So it was stunning to them. It was stunning to them. They were moved to tears in a time where there's a lot of uncertainty. So I adore the diag. I celebrate the diag.
Okay, Lynn, you need to finish up, please, so we can get to more
I love
questions.
the diag.
Okay, pro side?
Alan and Will, I wonder if you could explain us why a democratic empowerment process of designing this park and the common plaza, why would it be more beneficial than letting a corporation from Chicago take over our central public space? Thank you.
Well, thank you. Well, the ambience of a large commercial building that requires multi-million dollars of transaction every year just to make its financing, stable, is not the ambience that invites people to just be social and relaxed and able to socialize. What we are looking for is how to invite everyone here in Ann Arbor to bring your ideas of what would be beautiful and useful and engaging in the center of the city, and actually make a collective process of design and then implementation and financing and working on it. It is building community. It is not having either the corporation or the Parks Commission say what it is that would be best that we need, or even Doug Calbo. A lot of great ideas. How do we put them together? How do we make a democracy in Ann Arbor to bring all the ideas together in such a way that we would create something beautiful? And if it doesn't work, then we change it a little. And if it still doesn't work, well, the foundations are still there, and people can make another petition and amendment and put it back on the ballot. But if we build a building, there's never going to be a community commons that is for everybody. Right now, we have the opportunity on that land to create a democratic, participatory design process. It would be beautiful to do, and people would be engaged and could have the opportunity to be engaged, and that is what the City Council and the Parks Commission and the library is not allowed to happen. We need something that is for everybody. And if I could just say one last word, we have there a parking lot. What we want to do is unpave a parking lot and put up Paradise. And the core building or some 17-story corporate high-rise is not Paradise. It may be good. It could be somewhere else. I'm not against development. But a center of the city that is for everybody is an ideal. It's an expectation. It's an aspiration. And we can engage in it if we don't have the consistent naysaying that all that matters is money.
Okay,
Money
I'm
is
sorry.
not
I'm
the
going to have to
question.
interrupt you, Al, because we have a lot of people.
Oh, did I go too long?
Yeah, I think so. Okay, to the con mic, please.
Yes, my name is Tony Pinnell. I moved here 11 years ago. Love Ann Arbor, like everybody here. I work as a translator and interpreter for a large German corporation which does energy projects and mobility projects. I've been on dozens of projects, working underground with guys like Doug Kelbaum, but also all the engineers. I think what gets glossed over here and concerns me greatly. Oh, and by the way, I'm for green downtowns as much as anybody in this room. But I'm very, very concerned that it's gotten glossed over during this entire time. When you talk about trees and green on the library lot, you can't just say we're going to, take off the concrete. No, I know this. I know this stuff, and there's no engineer in this room that can argue against it. You're going to have serious problems having trees of any decent size there. You're going to have serious problems, and if you try to do it, if you have to move things around, you're going to create different statics loads everywhere. Because that place was not built to have 4 or 5 feet of dirt spread around, to have taller trees than bushes. Literally, there are a few that are getting there, maybe, but they're not. As soon as you're as high as the ceiling, no. So no shade trees. And my question is when considering this, that there are other properties in the downtown area that people love. Some people don't think about it, but when you sit with your friends in Bill's Beer Garden, or you're there at Beer Grotto, whatever, there's this lot over there, there's that, but think of the Klein lot. Think of Terra Firma. If the same thing, why is this other lot being considered? I'm asking the yes side. Why isn't that considered where you can just grow and have green grass and throw a frisbee to a dog instead of fighting the concrete that's underneath there? It doesn't make sense to me, and I'm all for green.
Can I
Yes, you can.
respond? Well, underneath the pavement of the parking lot, there is about 2 feet of rock, broken rock, cement, gravel, before we get to the roof of the underground parking structure, on top of which there's an impermeable barrier. I think there's a lot of dirt there that could be put there. Remove the cement, remove the rock, and we have enough for a really beautiful green area, and it would have some big trees too, here and there, maybe not as big as you want, but there have been many pictures of parking structures that have had trees on them. So I'm not sure about your data of whether a juniper tree can grab onto the corner of a little bit of stand, but whatever it is, I think that the landscapers and the community gardeners could find a way to make something most beautiful there.
Okay, we'll go to the pro side.
My name's Tom Weeder. I've lived in Ann Arbor for 50 years, and I have a question, quick question for the con side, which is basically, what is Protect Our Future Voters for Responsible Ann Arbor, which is in its website is a no names and a post office box, and where does its money come from? I'd also like to know where you get these figures that doing the park would take millions of dollars out of basic city services. Since there isn't a price tag for doing a project, I don't know how you can come up with a number that says all this money is going to be taken away. And you said there are no partners for doing a project like this. I can suggest a partner, your organization, the DDA. This park is in the this property is in the downtown. The DDA is there to enhance the downtown. In the last 5 years, the DDA has sucked up $30 million in property tax revenues. I think that would be a great source to fund doing a downtown park in the boundary of the Downtown Development Authority. You said that it is required by law that $5 million proceeds of this go to affordable housing. That's false. All that was a policy statement of the council that happened to be sitting there and passed that resolution. It does not bind any subsequent council. And of course, you may notice the council's changed quite a bit since that. Now, what the new council want to do, they might want to put more in. But to say to people this is required by law is simply false. You mentioned the big buildings are student buildings. There's nothing to prevent core spaces, which, by the way, mostly does student buildings. That's what they specialize in, from making this another student apartment building. And lastly, for Professor Kelball, I appreciate what he said, but a good example of what happens when you put a space like this is in Boston. They took down the central artery, and all these buildings were closed up against the central artery. When they took it down, they started opening up. The front doors ended up facing on the park.
Okay, thank you. And I believe it was a question to the con side.
So is
was the affordable housing?
I can speak to affordable housing, but I can.
It was actually about the campaign, I think.
About partnerships with the library. We have partnerships with institutions in town, with the university, with student groups. We have partnerships with developers. Westgate was a partnership. Sweetwater's was a partnership. And how do partnerships happen? People come to the table. I am not the library board president. I am not the library director. As far as when we engage with folks, I think if this is a goal of this proposal is to force a partnership in this way in the public, in this kind of forum, I'm not really sure how we can go really approach the table in a friendly manner. If you're asking us to amend the city charter in order to have a partnership when we have other successful partnerships that don't require such a large-scale impact on our community, I think we're talking past each other and about two different things.
Can I respond to his questions about the campaign? So Tom, if I understand, you were asking about where the money for the PAC comes from, and this audience will correct me if I get this wrong, but I believe campaign finance disclosures for both sides come out tomorrow or this weekend. So that will be coming soon. As far as who's a part of the group, that's really, I feel like, up to individual members to disclose. And then you asked where the figures for the money for the park come from. No specific figure has been cited, but there was, I have an email here between the DDA director, Susan Paulet, and then city administrator, Steve Powers, exploring the possibility of putting a park on the parking lot and the challenges of converting something that's used as parking to something as a park. And there was a...
okay, I'm sorry, but your time is up.
Thank you very much.
Okay, the con mic, please.
Hi, my name is Jean Leverich, and I can't believe I've lived in Ann Arbor for 30 years now, but I came here for graduate school in 1990, and I really love it here, so I stayed. And the city has changed a little bit over the time that I've lived here, but I feel that it's a very welcoming community, and I really enjoy the opportunity to participate in, conversations. And I really just mostly have a clarifying question. And my clarifying question, and I guess it's probably for both sides, because I'm just wondering, my understanding is that if I vote no on Proposition A, I get a park that has some green space. It's 12,000 square feet, and this park is paid for and maintained by the developer by contract. And this space is going to connect to the Liberty Plaza, and that it is sort of designed to be, just to serve as a public square. And that if I vote no on Proposal A, if I vote yes on Proposal A, then I'm voting for the idea of a park in the future that we as a community might decide to do a number of different things with. And I guess I'm just seeking clarification, because that's my understanding of what I as a citizen am being asked to vote on. And I can hear from both, if possible.
Okay, all right, we'll let each side have 2 minutes to answer the question, please. What happens if you vote no? What happens if you vote yes?
You can start.
Oh, all right. Well, it's a little confusing. The plaza, which would be part of the core spaces development, if the core spaces development were approved and built, the plaza, the 12,000 square foot plaza in front of it is what you're talking about in terms of a park. It won't, there's no way that it will be sort of physically connected with Liberty Plaza. There's, unless somehow they work out some arrangement to do that, but that's not part of the plan that's being proposed or talked about at this point. The idea of the park, the town square or the commons, whatever you want to call it, is basically what we're trying to do is what we hoped would happen over the years, and that the prior years, and that is a real, true public process where people could work together, where the stakeholders on the block would be engaged in a conversation about what they want to see. So the library, the private property owners, and come up with a plan that really plans for the entire block, that allows for pedestrian connectivity through the block, and does connect the public space on the library lot with Liberty Plaza.
Okay, con side, 2 minutes. What happens if you vote no? What happens if you vote yes?
I think you've actually described the process. If you've gone to the meetings and seen the massings, and the conversations have been happening with surrounding residents, there has been a conversation on what this plaza will do and what it'll service.
I wanted to speak to Jean's specific question about what the developer is being committed to. So again, we're not voting on the development, but what's on the table right now is that City Council has already issued a resolution that a development on that site would be, of the 16,000 square feet on the site, the plaza would be at least 12,000 square feet. The deal currently on the table is that space would be treated as a park, so essentially all First Amendment rights apply. In addition, again, specific to this particular particular deal, the developer has committed several $1,000s in programming funds to that plaza every year, so we'll see arts and kids activities and things like that on that space. I think that's what I wanted to address.
Okay. All right. Pro side, please.
Yes. My name is Charlie Laux. I've been in the city of Ann Arbor for over 20 years. I wanted to address this issue, and I wanted to get comments from everybody on this matter of that supposed vote that took place, allegedly selling the lot, the resolution by council. There is currently a lawsuit pending, and I would point out that there is a very good reason why this lawsuit is pending, because the council voted apparently to sell public land without even knowing what the terms are. One of our council members, Sumi Gillespie, who is my representative in Ward 1, specifically asked to see the specific terms of the sale. She was told to buzz off. Go pound sand. It's none of her business. The city attorney argued in court that Sumi Gillespie has no business knowing what was going on with that deal, or has no interest in it. So, my question to you is, why are we getting this disinformation that this sale is a done deal when it is being litigated in court? And people should be outraged about how this was handled. Let me give you an example of how this, how much time do I have? Let me give you an example which I think illustrates how awful this deal was handled. Imagine you want to sell your house, and you go to a real estate agent and you say, I want to sell my house. And the real estate agent says, great, I'll sell your house. The real estate agent goes off, figures out a deal, doesn't tell you what it is, executes the contract, and you have no say-so over it. That's what happened. That's what happened in this deal. I'm outraged.
All right, thank you. Each side, 2 minutes to respond.
So I'll address Charlie's comments specifically that City Council allegedly voted to sell the land. They did actually vote to sell the land. There are outstanding lawsuits against that decision, including one brought by 2 sitting council members, but that doesn't discount the vote that that does happen. There was also the comment that this is being discussed as a done deal, and that's absolutely not the case. And it's also not what we're voting on tonight. We're voting on, we're discussing the ballot proposal, which is, do we want to hold this land as public space in perpetuity, designated as an urban park and a civic center commons? Ultimately, that's the decision that we're being asked to make, and it's important to keep that focus.
Yeah, we can't speak on behalf of City Council. We are not City Council 3-minute. This is not
2-minute people, not 3-minute people.
Yes.
All right, we're going to try and split this, so I'll be very, very brief. I think Charlie summed it up pretty well. There were 8 votes in 2017. They needed an 8-vote majority on City Council to approve the sale of land, but there wasn't a contract. They sort of rushed that forward, and they sort of tried to delegate authority, and it turned out that it was, politically, it was probably good judgment because they lost that 8th vote in the next election. So I think what we're faced with now is a question, ironically, about the city charter and what it requires, and whether the terms of the city charter were followed by City Council in trying to sell the library lot.
Just to elaborate the legal ambiguities here, when we first raised this question of putting a public building on top of a private building on top of a publicly financed underground parking structure that has a limitation of no more than 10% of the benefit is for private use, and 170 or 190 parking spaces out of 700, 24% is being given to private development. That is in violation of the basis on which we got the initial funding and $11 million of subsidy of our interest. When this was first brought to the attention of the Internal Revenue, they said, well, nothing has been done yet because there was then no contract. There is now a deal that takes more than 10% of the public benefit and gives it to a private thing. So this is still going to be long in litigation because it is not a good deal, besides which a lot of the economics aren't so great. But the City Council right now will have the authority to approve whatever finally is done, and that is being litigated. Maybe the lower court will say no, and the other court will say, yeah, well, you're right, that it shouldn't have been done that way. It's in a legal limbo.
Thank you. Now we'll turn to the next person at the con mic, please.
Hi, my name is Jack Jennings, and I reside and vote in Ann Arbor. I'll respond to what Alan just said, but before I do, I wanted to thank all 4 panelists. Ann Arbor is one of the strangest places I've ever lived. Everybody's passionate. Everybody has an opinion. Nobody threatens to kill anybody. That's unique in this country at this point. Thanks. But to my point, Alan had said that the deal is a bad deal. I don't want to compare deals. What I want to do is understand voting yes or voting no. So assuming that this proposal fails, the question is for Alan and Will. What would you do in terms of taking the other public properties that are generally downtown? So we've mentioned all of them, the Y lot, Klein lot, all these other lots that are essentially hundreds of feet away from the lot that we're trying to turn into a public space. How would your organization feel about dying on that hill and getting a park there?
Okay, the pro side, 2 minutes.
Well, we will persist until the 6th of November, and then we'll see. And if it should fail, we will continue to look at how to develop Ann Arbor as a welcoming community with something beautiful as close to the center of the city as we can. The center of the city is the best place. The reason this is done, first of all, because the city council at the time didn't want to hear anything but their own view. The only way to get it is to amend the city charter. So that's how come we took the petition. We had a resolution to the city council, they wouldn't even listen to it. So we amend the city charter and make a place, designate where the 5 wards roughly meet as the center of the city, which it is called in the 3rd section of the 1st chapter. And that's what we're trying to do. Now, if we're not successful, we'll go from there. But it seems like the center of the city should be a place where the people see this. We could do something beautiful in the center of the city for everyone. It's not a complicated idea. And it is in some way exactly what I said before, to unpave the parking lot and put up paradise, put up something that would be beautiful for everyone. That's inviting everyone into a process. Now, if we try and do that on the Yapalio lot, well, it would be nice, but it's not really what we're looking for, what I'm looking for. I'm looking for the gathering of the community to do something that could be beneficial for everyone, and we put our hearts into it. This is a proposal of heart and of love, and the money is to the side because this is a rich town, and there is money, and there is talent, and there is commitment here to do something beautiful. That's what we rely on that side. And on the heart side, I think that there's a lot of heart here and a lot of creativity, and we do something nice.
Thank you.
Okay,
you're welcome.
Now we go back to the pro side.
I'm Doug Aikenhead. Pardon me, I've been a 20-year resident of Ann Arbor, and I've enjoyed every year, every minute of living here. Almost every town worth its salt has a town commons, a town square, an urban park, whatever you want to call it. And as nice as the Diag is, that's the university's property. It's not a town square, it's not a town commons, it's not an urban park. Many of these parks have been created in recent years. They've been infill parks. So they've had to adjust to the same kind of challenges and issues that we're looking at in terms of putting a downtown commons, a town commons on the library lot. It's not perfect, of course not. It hasn't been perfect in any one of those cases. But to paraphrase Voltaire, don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. We can have a great town square here, a great urban commons, and we should do it. My question though, Ann Arbor's property values are currently at a historic high. Nearly 40 high-rise buildings have been completed or are slated for construction in the next several years. And all those buildings are adding dramatically to the tax base as well as to our population. My question is, what is the economic justification for building yet another high-rise on the parcel of public land that represents our community's last and best opportunity to restore its town square that vanished with the demolition of our 19th century courthouse?
Now, are you asking the con side?
I am. I'm
All right,
asking the con side.
2 minutes?
Yeah, so I appreciate your question. It's a thoughtful one. I will contest your basic premise, which is that this is the last good spot for open space. There are a number of publicly owned open spaces around the downtown. The 2013 Parks Commission report that we've referred to lists several of them, and I'm acutely aware of the lost kind of public square that we missed when we turned our county building inside out, and the inside became a parking lot. That was a loss to our city. And I'm speaking a little bit extemporaneously, but I wonder if we could get that back. I'm wondering, they're considering uses for that parking lot there. Could we invert it back to what it was in the 19th century, where we have more of the traditional courthouse building and then the land surrounding it? I don't know if that's viable, but I'd be curious. But again, asking to your viability question, the Parks report was in 2013. In 2014 and 2015, Park staff developed a scoring framework by which they could measure the viability of acquiring new land or developing existing public land as parkland. These lots have not been scored, and I'd be very interested to know what staff had to say about the various scorings of those. And again, I'm going to bring us back. Your question is important, and it's important to people trying to understand how to decide. And I just want to remind again that the decision isn't, is this a park or is it a building, and is it a great park or is it a great building? The question is, do we hold this land in public for perpetuity as an urban park and civic center commons? That's the question on the ballot, so I just want to keep reminding.
I just want to add that I think Councilman Chip Smith is exploring the idea around a town hall close to City Hall. So I think that just popped up on Facebook recently.
Okay. Thanks.
Okay.
I don't think you answered my question at all.
I didn't, because I contest your premises. Yeah.
All right, we're going to go to the con mic. Sir?
Hi, my name is Scott Trudeau, also a resident and a voter here in Ann Arbor. And first, a short story, if I have time. I moved away from Ann Arbor in about 2004, 2005, and I distinctly remember Al's advocacy for converting the old YMCA into a community commons, which I was supportive of the idea. And I also remember people talking about the Allen Creek Greenway and wanting a trail. And those conversations were nascent then. I moved back 10 years later, and the contrast of those two processes is really dramatic to me. The tree line trail, we took an idea, explored it thoroughly, went through an extensive community engagement process, identified the costs, identified the alternatives, talked to all of the possible stakeholders along the way, and now we're in a position as a city where we can make an informed decision about do we want to fund this? How do we want to fund this? If we don't want to fund the whole thing, which pieces are important to us? We have a lot of information about how we make that choice. And looking at this proposal for the library lot, it's extremely rigid. It says it has to be this location. We don't know what it's going to be. We don't know how much it's going to cost. We really don't know whether or not it will succeed, and a lot of people don't think it will, given the configuration of the space. And so it just, the contrast of those two processes is really interesting to me, and why I'm kind of baffled. And then to get to my question is, I'm just wondering, to the pro side, I've listened to all the ideas, and I really, I love the vision. I don't see how it could practically fit in that space. And I'm wondering if one of you might have a magic wand or a Time Lord or something that can make the space as big as Campus Martius, or as big as Rosa Parks Circle, or as big as Bryant Park, because it's a fraction of the size. 16,000 square feet isn't going to hold it all.
Oh.
Well, let me pass part of it.
Well, all right, I'll try and save you some time. So first of all, one thing I'd like to address is that the square footage that's being talked about does not match the square footage for the site.
Well,
so
contiguous square footage is 16,000.
Yeah, so 16,000 square feet. If that was all that we were fighting over, core spaces wouldn't be involved because they couldn't build a building there. Obviously, the site is much bigger than that. And what we're talking about is not the 16,000 square feet that is the existing surface parking. We're talking about the whole site. So right there, you've got a bigger site. I think there's an opportunity for, and I think Peter Allen, if he got involved, would be a great person for sort of brainstorming about this. But there's an opportunity to activate that whole block if the city could lead a planning process and engage all of the different stakeholders on the block, but also the community, and thinking together in a holistic way about the block. That's, from my point of view, that's what this is really about.
Okay.
It's about trying to come up with a plan for that block that provides pedestrian connectivity, that connects Liberty Plaza with whatever the public space is that's created on the library lot.
Well, the difference between the two properties, which is your question, is the Greenway tree line is in the floodway. Nothing can be built there. There's no tax revenue coming out of there. Nobody's got an interest in making money there. Whereas the center of the city is big money, most valuable piece of land, some people say, in Ann Arbor. All the people in power who have their eye on making money there. That's the difference, and that's why they have not been willing to listen to people saying, we want that for the public, for all the people, not for the money, but for the people. In perpetuity, until it's changed. Perpetuity is until somebody puts out a new petition and says, okay, we can't do it.
Okay. We have 10 minutes left, and so I'm going to suggest that speakers from the audience limit their time to 1 minute, and the people on the dais as well. So we are back up to this microphone. 1 minute, please.
Oh,
You're not
just
leaving,
as I got
Ryan.
here. Can anybody hear me? Because I have to stand right. Thank you. Okay. Hi, my name's Christine Lux. I've been here since the end of the 60s. So I'm familiar with all the things that have happened here, and I'm not nostalgic for it either. I just want to see quality of life, and that's what I am sad to see that we are losing in this town, is the quality of life. And I don't want to see it become a corporate Ann Arbor. I want to see it remain a place for the people of Ann Arbor. Our greatest resource is our people and our land. And we want to protect that. And we want the people to have a say. The whole reason this ended up as a proposal here was because the city would not agree to let people vote for something. If they were so sure they were right, they could have been explaining this all along and put it out and treated us like intelligent people. And I have to stop.
Okay, we'll go to the con mic. 1 minute.
Thank you. I'm Phil Tuchinski. I live in Ann Arbor. I believe Will just revealed a couple of minutes ago the real plans that we're really voting on. It's the whole block.
Yes.
It's not the library lot. The language of the ballot proposal defines the land by the streets surrounding it. It's the entire city block. There's private property on that city block.
No, it is a publicly owned land.
Excuse me, sir, I have the microphone. This is a land grab. This is taking buildings by eminent domain. This is a way, way bigger plan than the library lot. A plan about the library lot would define the public space according to the actual legal boundaries of the library lot.
Okay, we'll go to the pro side. 1 minute.
I've got good news. My name is Frank Wilhelm, and I spent 30 years raising lots of money as part of a team for the University of Michigan. A lot of that money went for construction and open courtyards, etc. I only wished I had a project like this. And at the end, I'm going to volunteer to help raise the money. This is a partnership. This speaks to Ann Arbor. It's 200th anniversary. This is a town that really values its history. We have 14 historic districts, 1,800 structures protected under state law and local ordinance. we're going to have a participatory process. I only wished I had this kind of setup to raise serious money for a community benefit. It's going to happen. I volunteer tonight. Thank you.
Okay. The con mic, 1 minute.
Thanks. My name is Jim Pike, and I've lived here since 1986. And I want to bring it quickly, as we're coming close to the end here, bring it back to the actual ballot proposal itself, and ask the yes folks, Alan and Will. I'm confused about the motivation behind the in perpetuity phrase because it seems like I would actually vote yes if it was phrased as something like hold the land in public, pending the development of a plan with some significant amount of funding for 5 years or 7 years or something like that. But why say in perpetuity?
Okay, pro side, 1 minute.
Well, when I wrote the thing, which I did, identifying that the publicly owned land, the city-owned land within that area should be kept as public space, not all of the block fill. In perpetuity was like forever. We want a park. Now, I understood, and the reason it was an amendment to the city charter is that the only way to get something through that city council was to amend the city charter, and such a city charter can again be amended. So in perpetuity to say, yes, that's what we want. We assume it's going to work and it's going to be forever, and the next generation is going to be glad that we did it, and the generation after that will be even gladder. So that is forever, yes, forever. If it doesn't work, then undo it, and that can be done the same way we have done it. Go out, get the people to put together, or get the city council to put it back on the ballot, which they can do without all the hassle we had to go through, but they wouldn't do it. So in perpetuity is maybe a word that shouldn't be used. If you want to be nitpicking, okay.
Thank
but
you.
it is say forever
I'm
as best
sorry,
we can.
We have to go on. Okay, the pro mic. 1 minute.
Good evening, thank you. My name is Miko Possum. I've been here in Ann Arbor for about a decade now. And my question is for you two ladies, and it does have to do with the core deal. Is it my understanding correctly that if this were to go through, if it gets through the litigation and it moves forward and Proposal A doesn't pass and all of that, is it true that the core deal would have a hard time going through without the parking and the parking structures? And I have a comment after you.
Can you clarify that? I don't quite understand the question.
There's the parking element involved, the parking garage.
Part of the deal.
Three different parking structures that are a part of that deal.
Okay, so you're asking about the parking part of the contract?
Yes.
Okay, I understand. So I am familiar, but I would prefer to be more specific tomorrow when I can do more homework. I do understand that a tentative part of the deal right now is to lease at 20% over market rate, 196 spaces out of the library lot structure itself. I believe there is also access to some monthly permits, I believe, at the 4th and William lot. I'm not familiar with the 3rd. That doesn't mean it's not there.
Okay, so with that being said, what about this age of mobility that we're coming upon? What about the fact that we may not need all this parking in the future? And right there is a lot of space for affordable housing. So I just want to actually make that point, that we may not have the city streets are going to look quite different in the future, and it's not that far down the road. So it's something to really think about. And is this core deal a good deal then if we're giving them also more prime real estate that they would be able to do something else with as well?
So
Okay.
Miko, your points are great, and I think that this being...
The time is up for this particular one.
Okay, thank you.
I'm sorry, we have to go to the con mic. Ma'am?
Karen Hart, former planning director. I was going to come up with some scintillating question, but it's clear that people, kind of have their minds made up for the most part, and I'm not sure that's useful. So I'll just tell you my perspective that I haven't heard tonight from anybody else. After wrestling with downtown development for most of my career here, I think what makes a great downtown is not only the whole collection of activities that are here, but great buildings that can have different uses in them over many years, because what starts out there is not what ends up there. Anybody in this room who has truly lived here for as long as they say they have will know in their heart of hearts that Liberty Street has been a horrible street, a no man's land for a good long time. It's slightly better than it used to be, but it's between campus and Main Street. It's dead. And we have the opportunity, whether it's core spaces or some other significant building, to get a mixed-use, 24/7, active collection of people and activities in a place where it's never been.
Automatically shut off.
Yeah. Okay. Fine.
Final copies at this time. All materials to be checked out.
This happens during our board meetings too.
We know. So it is context, it is activity. I'm in favor of activity, not passivity, as the parks tend to be. There's nothing wrong with parks, but in this location, we need activity. There's a bus station where people walk. There will be hotel space.
Okay,
there will be residences.
I'm sorry, your time is up.
We need a building with a park.
One more pro, one more con, and then we'll be done. Okay, sir.
Do we get a final word up here?
No, I'm sorry. You've had your chance. Okay.
I'm Tim Jansen. I went to public schools here. I've lived a good part of my life since 1961 in Ann Arbor. I've been a homeowner for the last 32 years. And I just have a pretty simple question I'm directing it to the pro-core people. I hear a lot of no can do or naysaying about what can be done with Prop A. And I'm sitting there going, well, you know, what did the pioneers think about 125, 150 years ago? Did they just sit there and say, oh, we can't go, we better move on, we better go to Oregon or something? They stayed here. Why did they? You know, the mind is a wonderful thing, and I've met a lot of the people that are willing to work with the core space, with Prop A and the Central Park, and things should be done. You know, it takes, you know, maybe some, you know, brainstorms and some good talk sessions in a good, reasonable period of time. But, you know, fundraising and all that stuff.
Okay, sir, your time is up. All right, you get 1 minute, pro side. Pro side. 1 minute.
I think he was directing that question to the pro-core side.
I was doing the pro-core side.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
It was
all right.
tricky.
Con side.
You know, I would hope that brainstorming and planning would come long before something lands on the ballot.
It did.
All right, please. Okay, we're going to go to the con mic. This is our last question.
Hi, my name's Katie. I am very undecided. That's why I'm here today. And thank you for everyone. And there's lots of knowledge in this room, and I feel like I'm learning a lot. I feel like I'm clear on what the yes side wants, but the no side, you keep bringing up the public land. Does that mean if it fails, it will be private and it will go to core, or it just will be private?
That's a great question, and actually that question is a bit up in the air. So the lawsuits still need to play out. There's 2 or 3, I think, pending against that, and also the contract agreement still needs to be finalized. So the City Council did vote to sell the lot, but the contract agreement between the 2 legal entities haven't yet been finalized. So one of the reasons we've been talking about development is that we're not yet specifically talking about core, even though core has gone through a couple of years of community engagement. So there's a lot to understand on that, and I encourage you to engage with us offline. There's a lot to be said. But the hope is that the project as it's being proposed can go. Also, there's plenty, I know I just have a couple of seconds, there's plenty of opportunity left for public engagement on the project. So there's an information session next week, November 1st, and will continue to be after that as well.
All right, I want to thank you all for coming. The library is going to close. Good evening.